Converted Man here. You know, I want people to learn informal logic. Because the fact is, if you don't know informal logic, there is no way that you're going to be able to identify bad logic being used. It's just, well, it's highly unlikely. Example in point, Shadow Force. Ooh. At Paul Ross Aviation, who apparently is a fan, I guess, to some extent of Darth Dawkins. He has like a whole thing about it. Darth Dawkins, he likes this guy. Oh, man. Okay. Anyways, just because you like somebody that has no logical foundation whatsoever doesn't mean that you yourself don't understand logic or care about logic, but it doesn't bode well. Presuppositionalism is, of course, the non-logic invented by some Christian at some point to try to just win the argument before it happens. And essentially, precept argues that logic has to be bound in God. And so if you use logic, then God must exist. There go. If you're using an argument, then you've automatically proven God. And for some reason, precepts tend to be really rude individuals. I don't know why this is a thing that seems to have caught on. You know, Seitan Bergergate, most famous preceptor, and others I've encountered have all been very rude, but that doesn't mean anything either. They don't have logic at all. They make statements about logic that are untrue. They say that every argument is circular. That's not true. They make other statements that are just completely off kilter. And of course, they assume their conclusion, which makes them already wrong about everything. And they try to wiggle off that by saying, well, you know, what's the grounding of logic? The grounding of logic is logic or reality itself. And if you substitute that with God, then God becomes an object of the mind and not real. And that's not a good thing, and you don't want that. But anyways, so this Shadow Force guy has a video responding to somebody. No link provided to who he's responding to, Shadow Barlow. Commented on my recent video, but the problem is, like, well, which recent video are you talking about? Because, like, you know, that was 2 days ago. Then the recent video was somewhere on location tourism travel. Is that the one, or is it atheist self-destruction? I mean, which video are you talking about? I don't know. But at any rate, so he just went and posts his entire transcript of his video in the discussion in the comment section. So in a way, I don't even need to play the video per se, but I will, because it's hilarious. So here we go.
Making a claim must present evidence to support that claim. You are correct, Simon. Your assessment is accurate. If I'm making a claim about something, the burden of proof would rest upon me to provide evidence to support that claim. And in my videos, I present multiple weights of evidence showing that the God model of interpretation aligns with the realities and facts of existence.
Now he says this, and again, I looked at his channel, and I'm looking for what videos he might be talking about, and I don't really know which ones he's referring to, you know, because, like, you know, which reality is correct? Is that the video? My atheist grandma forgot to mention, but God is a circular argument. No evidence of God claim. Astronaut who couldn't find God. Richard Dawkins confession. What? Richard Dawkins universe good to, you know, do you mean that? Which one of these videos has the evidence of God in it? I don't know. I'd like to know. I'm not sure which one. Is it like in a playlist maybe? No. Atheists make up 4% of the U.S. adults. Why? Okay, is it supposed to be these videos? Does these videos explain why atheists make up 4% of adults? Also, citation required. Also, the popularity of anything doesn't mean it's right or wrong. So it doesn't really matter. But uh, I don't know. I don't know which video you're referring to. So, maybe you could help me out there. So, anyways.
Yet you have not fulfilled your obligation to provide evidence for any of your extraordinary claims. So, Simon, where is the evidence that clearly shows that your godless model of interpretation is true?
Well, that's assuming that the person has proposed that there is no God. But I would think that the reality we observe doesn't indicate God. But the problem of God is, what is God? How do you know what God is in the first place? What method did you use to arrive at that conclusion? Which God are you referring to? There's thousands of different God concepts out there. So how do I know which one you're talking about? I don't believe in God because I don't even know what God means. And every time somebody has explained what they mean by God, uh, it's rather incoherent. It doesn't align with reality, and they don't offer evidence. They offer bad arguments. So I would like actual evidence for a change. If you have that, just give that. Asking the other side to provide evidence, well, again, that's shifting the burden of proof. You don't need to do that if you have proven there's a God, which, if you have evidence, then there you go. But it doesn't sound like you have evidence. It sounds like you have bad arguments that you think point to God. And now you're asking to shift the burden. How do you prove not God? Well, the fact that there is no God to point to should be evidence that there's no God to point to. How can I show that there isn't a thing God? First of all, I have to know what God is. So there's back to square one. What is God? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't believe in it. So that's it. Whatever it is, I don't believe in it. I don't think that it is a thing other than a thing in the mind. You have invented this concept and labeled it as God. So if you demonstrate that there is a God, then I believe in it. And if you don't, I don't believe in it. To ask me to demonstrate that there is no God would assume that I have a definition of God that I don't have. You're the one that would have to provide that definition, because I have no concept that I would call or label God. You do. The theist does. The person that believes in God has a concept of God. The skeptic does not have that.
Provide us with the demonstrable, irrefutable proof of God's non-existence.
Okay, again, depends what God is. If God is a thing that requires one to do illogical thoughts, then it's going to not align with reality. For example, if your God is fine with presuppositionalism, then your God doesn't exist, because precept is illogical at its core. If your God makes you think that the world is 6,000 years or 12,000 years young rather than its actual age, then your God doesn't exist. If your God requires you to say that the universe isn't is younger than it actually is, then your God doesn't exist. If your God denies biological evolution or any other science, then your God doesn't exist. If your God is presented in a way that is logically fallacious, then your God doesn't exist. If your God has contradictory abilities, then it cannot exist. If your holy book that speaks of your God is not concurrent with reality, then that God cannot exist. Just depends on which version of God you're talking about. And since there's nothing on your channel to indicate that, I don't know which God you're speaking of. So I don't know exactly how I would go about showing that there isn't your version of God.
Apart from a mere assertion. Now, don't give me naturalism of the gaps. I don't know of the gaps and materialistic promissory notes.
Well, wow. Just don't give me X, Y, and Z. Okay. You're not allowed to use argumentation, Holy Scripture to prove God. Go. Can you do it? Can you prove God without Holy Scripture or any argumentation? Because the only thing I want is evidence. Not an argument, evidence. Well, what do you mean by evidence? Of course. The same sort of evidence that we have for everything else. Okay? That sort of evidence. Do you have that for God? If the answer is yes, give me that. If the answer is no, then you've got nothing that will convince me. That's it. It's very simple. Not here to prove there isn't a God. First, because I don't know what it means to be God. But secondly, that is your burden to fulfill. This is just asking somebody for something that they might not have and is switching burden of proof. But you're now making a list of things that you won't accept. Seems rather limiting.
Simon, I don't want to hear about your woo-woo brute facts.
Woo-woo brute facts. Well, how do you determine when something is a woo-woo brute fact or not? That's something that you would have to go into. What makes something, if it's woo-woo, then it wouldn't be a brute fact, because brute fact is just real, whereas woo-woo isn't real. So you got to decide. You don't want to hear about woo-woo. I agree. I don't want to hear about woo-woo either. But I do want to hear about brute facts. So I don't know what you're negating here. It's kind of odd.
Emergence, randomness, luck, chance, probability.
Oh, so you don't actually want any actual explanation of anything. Got it.
Epiphenomenal illusions, and materialistic just so stories. Just show us how God is impossible.
Well, again, it depends what God is, doesn't it? I don't know what your version of God is, so it's impossible if it's logically contradictive. There you go. If it's impossible if it doesn't align with reality. There you go.
Simon, you would have us believe that the whole show of reality owes its existence to purely naturalistic causes and processes. Well,
given that that's all we ever have seen, naturalistic processes, it would stand to reason that naturalistic processes are the thing that made reality possible. Unless you have an example of a non-naturalistic process, then why would we even think that there was such a thing as a non-naturalistic process?
I say, prove it. Show us that the grounding of existence is godless and impersonal. Provide us with the indisputable proof of an atheistic ontology.
Well, there's no such thing as an atheistic ontology, so that can't be proven. You're asking for proof that there is no God. Again, depends upon what God is stated to be, and that rests solely upon the one claiming there's God. Modern cosmology has models that explain the universe to some extent, and biology explains life to some extent, and there are some unknowns in those things, perhaps. And I think that that's where the theist takes those unknowns and they run away with them, and they say that's where God is. Not all, but many theists have done this. So which idea of God are you speaking of? We don't know.
I don't want to hear about your hypothetical materialistic attempts to explain reality.
Why not? Why don't you want to hear about hypotheticals? I mean, hypothetically, there could be a God. I'm willing to listen to that. I've listened to it many, many times. I entertain the hypotheticals in so much as they're logical at any rate. But you're just shutting down avenues of conversation that you don't want to have.
I'm not interested in your woo-woo brute facts, emergence, randomness, luck, chance, probability.
Again, he's not interested in emergence, so he's not interested in reality. Okay, because emergence is a thing that is real. So I don't know. I guess he just doesn't want to hear about reality now. Okay.
Epiphenomenal illusions and materialistic just so stories.
He's repeating himself, by the way.
And since there are no convincing proofs of your position and no strong and rational arguments for your faith-based philosophical interpretation of reality.
Oh my word. Wow. That's a lot of projection there. There's no faith required to not believe in God. There's zero faith on my part. It is a conclusion drawn from the lack of evidence for God in general and particular gods, and specifically the one that I started with, the only God that I ever believed in was the Judeo-Christian God. And since we were taught that that was the only God, when I lost that God, that was it. I lost all the God that could be. And so I was atheist by definition. Once I realized that there was no evidence for that version of God and plenty of reasons to think that that version of God was made up by people, I didn't have a choice but to not believe it. So that there isn't a God is essentially very simple. You look around at the trees, perhaps, but not just the trees, but just in general, you look at everything and you're looking for this thing called God and you don't see it. What does it look like? Where is it located? Well, it's not, apparently, God isn't a thing like that, I guess. So, what is, how do I know? Maybe some, maybe this computer is God. How would I know? How would anybody know? And that's the problem. If God hasn't communicated with humans in such a way that all humans would understand what it is and how it works, then it is more likely that God is a product of individuals and groups making up stories that other people believed. We call this religion. So God is the byproduct of our own active imaginations running away with ourselves, if you will, and us believing in our own made up stories. Stories that might be of use or interesting or enlightening or scary or what have you, but are just stories. They're not actually real. They didn't really happen. They might contain moral ideas or not, but they're just stories. And we make up stories. We have tons of movies and television shows. So we're very good at telling stories. God is a story, unless you can demonstrate that it is more than that. I think it's reasonable to conclude that there isn't a thing called God.
I will continue to be rational and devote my life to God.
Well, rational in what sense? Because rational in a logical sense, no. Rational in the sense of it makes sense given that there are plenty of people out there that believe in God, that our society has a zeitgeist of God belief. That yes, it makes sense that you might believe in God due to social pressures, due to perhaps your indoctrination as a young person. That makes a rational sense, but is not logically rational. At any rate, all you have here is a shifting of the burden of proof. You guys prove that there isn't a God. Well, I mean, sure, but it depends what God is. So then it's still your burden to demonstrate that that's what God is. And how do you know what God is in the first place? And if you're unwilling or unable to answer that question, then why should we believe there is a God at all? And if you only have arguments for God, if we examine those arguments and we find that they're scientifically inaccurate and or contain logical fallacies, then we have to say that those arguments did not function. And if you refuse to fix your arguments, then we have to think that you don't have reality, you just have a belief that you want to be true. And if you're not willing to be wrong about it, and you're not willing and able to question your own ideas, then that indicates that you have a belief. I don't. Your projection of faith and other statements onto your interlocutor here suggests that you are somewhat unsure of your own position, and so you project onto others the faults that you have and that they won't share. All right, so yeah, you didn't have evidence or proof of God in this video, which is interesting. If you said that you had it in some other video, that you didn't even bother to link to that video. Nowhere in your description or in your comment, you said please click the link below for access related videos, and that's the playlist of the why is 3% or 4% of adults are atheists. And there's how many videos there? There's a bunch of videos there. They're all pretty short. But I would think that if you had evidence, you could just tell us what that evidence is, and save us a trip to those videos. I think what you do have in those videos is just a bunch of bad arguments. But you know what? Since I'm done with this video, let's just for fun, let's just check it out. It's like a 2-for-1 day. Yeah, sure, why not? Why not? Let's do this top video here just for fun. Let's see what this is.
On August 7th, 1960.
Oh, it's AI slop. I don't want to listen to it. I don't care. It's AI slop. Next.
The universe that could not be crossed. I'll let Hawking tell you himself. After many questions are answered.
I don't know. Nothing there. Okay.
Madeline focused her life.
More AI slop. Okay, skip. Thwarting God, trying to create life in the lab. Let's see what that is.
I've never been a.
More AI slop. Okay. Shadowlands, Anthony Hopkins full movie. That's just the story of C.S. Lewis. That's nothing. Richard Dawkins' confession. Let's see what that is.
But you said that, it's happened just because of the laws of physics. I want to take this back to that step. Where did those come from?
Well, let's get to that then, because you keep getting to that, and that I believe that's a very profound. If somebody was going to convince me of the need for a God, it would be there. When you come on later to the origin of the physical constants, now that's getting warm. That's getting close to a good argument.
That's not a confession. You cherry picked a clip of Dawkins and put music on it. Okay, that's not any convincing anything. Okay, there's no evidence there. No evidence of God claim. Let's see, maybe you actually have it here.
There is no evidence.
More AI slop. Okay, I'm going to conclude based on this that all of those videos are either AI slop or cherry picked. As such, I'm not going to even bother with it. So if you did have evidence of God, because you decided to use AI slop, I guess I'll just miss that evidence. Well, maybe God itself can give me the evidence of God. That would be nice. Wow, just a bunch of nothing there from this guy. Not really surprised, not really shocked. I mean, again, he has a video celebrating Darth Dawkins. Now, I have interacted, unfortunately, with that individual in the past, and I have nothing good to say about Darth Dawkins. But that doesn't matter. yes, he's an asshole and a complete jerk, and nobody should talk to him, in my opinion, because he's a troll and should be ignored. But that doesn't negate his argument. He doesn't have an argument because he's a presuppositionalist, and precept relies on just circular argumentation that asserts that there's a God and that God is the God of the Bible and that you can't have logic unless that's right. And so I win, you lose, good game, the end. No, that's not how anything works. And every single actual logician that exists says no to precept. And it also lies about, all arguments are circular. No, they're not. And, it's just a bunch of nonsense. Precept is zero. Zilch, nada, no logic there. So, So at any rate, you can be a fan of whoever you want, I suppose. When they are jerks, I don't know why people are fans of them, but, another precept jerk, Bob, what's his name? Jim Bob, again, Saitin Burgergate, also a big jerk and a preceptor. But that doesn't mean all preceptors are jerks. It just means every preceptor I've encountered is a jerk. So I don't know, but then none of them have a valid argument. I'm just saying. So they don't care about logic. Precept is built to shut the conversation down so that you can then preach the word of God from the Judeo-Christian standpoint. And it's no wonder that people that use precept are kind of jerks. And I had a conversation with somebody on this channel, you'd have to dig it up now, who was a preceptor. And you can listen to him switch to precept mode and become a complete and total jerk when he does so. So you can hear it yourself if you're interested in that. If you want to know what video that is, don't want to dig it yourself, let me know in the comments and then I'll dig it out for you. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it because I'd rather be lazy and just tell you that it exists than to find it. But if you ask me for it in the comments, then I'll give it to you. Not in the side chat. Doesn't count in the chat. All right. We don't have empirical evidence, repeatable tests, or a valid and sound argument for his God. And we don't even know which version of what God he's talking about. So we have literally no reason to believe that it's a thing. And we certainly don't have to prove that there isn't a God, because the burden to demonstrate that there is a God is upon the people that claim that there is one, not upon the people who claim I don't believe that, which is the majority of atheists, I would dare say at this point. Meanwhile, I do have a project still ongoing. If you haven't already taken part, please check it out. It is on my live section, and it is asking for you to put a comment. And where the bleep is it? Is it on my video section or my live section? No, it is on my live section. Oh my God, they're out. Oh, whoa. It's called, hey, I want you to do this thing for me, us, please. Oh man, I'm hiccuping again. What the bleep is going on? Yeah, so that video, do that. And if you haven't already, and even if you have, then tell other people about it, because I want more people to do it. And see, I went in with this idea of, I'm going to ask atheists this question, and I expect this answer. And so far, the answer is not what I expected. Oh, no! But I'm going to be honest enough to present whatever I get and say, it looks like I was wrong. Go figure, So, that's cool. I don't mind being wrong. Anyway, that's all. I guess this was how many videos in one? 5 in one? I don't know. I guess really the first one is the only one that counts as a video. AI slop doesn't count. Speaking about AI slop, I just put out a silly video with music made by AI, but I wrote the lyrics. So that's not AI slop. That's AI gold. See, it's gold when I use it. It's slop when everyone else uses it. Unless I like you, then it's not. That's how that works. All right, that's it. I'm done for now. Send me videos that prove God or something. I don't know. I'm out of things to talk about for now. See ya. Be skeptical. Whee!